watching now or later, this is Fight Commentary Breakdowns, and we are on Fight Commentary Chats right now. And probably what I'll do is, as it gives me the YouTube backend, I will very quickly adjust some of the settings just so more people can find this. But anyways, guys, we got Ryan there, who's been featured twice on Fight Commentary Breakdowns, hopefully more. The first time I featured Ryan, I thought he looked like a Wing Chun guy. So I was like, oh, Wing Chun. And it's like, oh, actually, he's not Wing Chun. But second time I got his style right. In fact, Ryan does more than just Kung Fu. And that's why we wanted to bring him on, because he incorporates Kung Fu into his journey. But, he's also willing to train other arts. And I think that's what our channel wants everyone to do. So, Ryan, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you, Jerry.
And let's start from the beginning. So when did you discover martial arts?
So my original foundational style is Xingyi.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was introduced just growing up in a poor area of in Miami, Hialeah. There's a very immigrant kind of community high there that's kind of low end, and the kids kind of just run wild, and everybody's on their bikes and running the streets and that kind of things until the street lights turn on. So I met a old man, Mr. Chang, that was immigrated from China to Hong Kong, then to Cuba, then made it from Cuba to that neighborhood of Hialeah. Had no driver's license, didn't speak any English, and had a car with no papers and did delivery for a takeout place and
Wow.
lived out a little efficiency in the back of somebody's house. So
Wow.
he he was my original guy to kind of mentor me and get me started and teach me Xingyi, and that's was my I studied with I practiced and kind of like got my foundation from him from 11 to about 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he was my mentor. Kind of like taught me the philosophy and kind of created my foundation for me over those years and in that little backyard with a mango tree.
Wow. And so you were running around. Did you sort of bump into him one day? Was it kind of that
Uh,
what happened?
Basically, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, we got into all kinds of trouble as kids in that age group. I mean, we did things like have rock fights, like friendly competition rock fights. You stand on that side of the street, we'll stand on this side of the street. Whoever gives up and bleeds enough will stop throwing rocks. So at some point, just running around the neighborhood and terrorizing and getting into hijinks, we saw him like going through his linking forms
Oh.
like 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 through that little side area of the yard that you can see into somebody's backyard. We peeked him like doing his linking forms there and went over there and were nosy, and it was like three or four of us that like kind of started with him in the beginning, and then kids kept dropping off until it was just me
Oh wow.
over the years.
Wow. Wow. It's funny. So you're a Gen Xer. It sounds like you lived the Gen X life, which I think a
Yeah,
lot of Americans, a lot of people in the world are deprived of. Like I spent a few years in China, and China was slower to catch up to America. So I got to live a Gen X life for a little bit, even though I'm
right.
technically a Gen Y, a millennial. But I know how you feel. Like I still think fondly on those days. Like we just wander everywhere. And for us, it wasn't rock fights; it was BB gun fights. We had airsoft guns. So thank goodness
Yeah,
it
too.
wasn't
Yeah,
shooting
yeah.
the metal bullets; it was the plastic bullets. But still, it hurt, man. It really hurt. So we'd have airsoft gun fights all the time. It's kind of funny because China bans guns, but like kids could have airsoft guns, so we just be just shooting airsoft guns at each other. It was crazy.
Yeah, we did that in my neighborhood too. We called it manhunt. Like it was basically
Manhunt.
you got tagged with you had to cry uncle and get tagged with enough shots to be out, and it was teams of kids, and
Yeah.
you'd play across like three or four blocks.
Wow. Oh man, boy have times changed, right? Oh,
Oh yeah.
we could have a whole conversation in the future about like the stuff we did during this period of our childhood. Wow.
Oh no, yeah. We
Wow.
all that stuff was highly illegal that we
Yeah.
that we got away with when we were kids
Yeah.
compared to now.
Yeah. So, do you remember the first class? What was it like with him?
Um, So the very first things that we worked on, and he was very, it was a very interesting practice with him. We basically focused on the five elements of fist striking, and like linking forms and footwork and like good body composition.
Mm-hmm.
But we never, it was a very cyclical system. Like it was never a, oh, we're gonna do, which, I mean, you're familiar with Cindy. It's not, there's no super jumpy cool flips and stuff. Like we don't, there's no 540s. So it's really just, we're gonna go through this form. You're gonna learn it one time. We're gonna put 100 hours into that, and then we're gonna do it again, and we're gonna focus on this one detail we're gonna polish,
Oh.
and then we're gonna do it again, and we're gonna work on this one detail. Like we're gonna get it perfect, perceptively perfect for your level now. Once it's perceptively perfect, we're gonna do it again, and we're gonna find a mistake now that we're not worried about that one detail.
Yeah.
So yeah, like our very first scenarios were just a standard linking forms and stepping forward, which I believe the very first sequence that was like kind of his focus was a linking sequence that was basically a metal fist and a fire fist
Mm-hmm.
combination,
Mm-hmm.
and we basically just drilled and drilled and drilled.
And knowing you had the kind of Gen X childhood, did you use those Xingyi moves when you got into fights?
Oh yeah, all the time, man. I mean that's yeah, that was that was those were back in the days somebody had a fight after school at least daily.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was just part of growing up. Was everybody had to figure out, all the boys especially had to figure out their pecking order after school, and
Yeah.
that was kind of like a social status requirement
Yeah.
growing up.
Did you remember the first time you pulled off a move that you're like, whoa, I learned that a while ago?
Um, not. I mean, what was a really big thing, which really hasn't like carried over into kickboxing nowadays, but what was really a big thing then, was that metal fist and fire fist, like linking form,
Mm-hmm.
to come down with the cutting motion, and then to explode through as you're walking through, was like just like that just won like all scenarios like as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I
I mean,
see.
which is kind of like even when technique doesn't like apply specifically nowadays, it's still, there's like I call it foundation. Like I think a good techie way to think of it is like underlying like software programming. What's your language to understand how combat and how a fight should work,
Yeah.
right? So for with that foundational structure that I got forever ago, like it's always been a game of position, posture, and balance. If you can win in those three areas, you don't actually have to out damage your opponent to put them in a compromising position where you're going to win regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. So, tell me, as your martial arts journey progressed, did it started with all the kids on the block, eventually just you with the shifu? Did you guys eventually? Did he eventually promote you to help teach him? Where did it go after that?
He was very much a traditional like family style lineage guy, which is, I I didn't understand it at the time, but as an adult looking back and looking around, I see how unique of a thing that is. Where I mean, aside from like the random like grocery store errand or like backyard chore around like his backyard area, like I really wasn't expected to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I was really expected to pay anything, or compensate him in any way for his teaching.
Mm-hmm.
It was mainly just a passing on of like his wisdom to like go on, for his line to continue after him.
Yeah.
And I mean, and there was never any aside from like the big brother little brother metric, like social metric, when somebody else new comes along and wants to learn some stuff, there's never ever a, now you're allowed to go teach people, or this is your belt ranking, or like none of that was ever a thing with him.
Yeah.
Like there was never ever a concept of, this is when you've mastered the style and you're ready to teach someone else. It was a, no, you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
just, mastering is an illusion. You're going to continue to grow forever,
Yeah.
and that should be the goal.
That makes sense. And by the way, apologies both to you and everyone watching. I didn't realize I got so excited. My knee accidentally unplugged my mic, so it wasn't the clearest audio. Hopefully, you could still hear me
No, I can
before.
hear you fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I just realized as you were talking, I plugged my mic back, and somehow I didn't even realize this part could get unplugged. So now I learned something new. But yeah,
Yeah.
so anyways, let me just adjust my little headphones in case the headphones accidentally do something, and it wasn't my knee. But okay, so um, you got a little older, and then when did you discover the other arts that you started training?
Um, well, let's see here. I mean, my original introduction to boxing and grappling and all that fun stuff, just as like a kid, and it was the thing to do, was probably like high school, like
Mm-hmm.
16, 17.
Mm-hmm.
Um, After that, I continued with boxing and kickboxing, like from like 18, 19, 20. I ran into I mixed in some Muay Thai and all that stuff. I mean, I basically just bounced around. I bounced around in all of those places, and my mental state through all of it was, how do I replace my origin? How do I link this back to my origin?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like how do I make these concepts make sense in my original context?
Yeah.
But yeah, I bounced around from boxing and wrestling to Muay Thai to kickboxing, back to Muay Thai, a little bit of Sanda here and there, like all over the place.
And what was your dream at the time? Did you want to be a pro fighter? Did you want to fight in the ring?
No, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I mean, it was really just the original theme of, you're going to be this is it's the purpose of your life. The purpose of good kung fu is to continuously grow.
Mm-hmm.
There shouldn't be a stop. There shouldn't be an end to the journey. You shouldn't just sit somewhere and say you've made it.
Yeah.
Like, you should continue to grow and evolve, and you should continue to grow and evolve for the sake of growing and evolving, and that should be enough.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
concept of continuous mastery. So
I see.
I didn't actually that was really the only motivation I ever needed, and that was enough. It's only been like the last 3-ish years that I've been actively training to compete and pursuing competition, and that's really only been for the mental crutch. Like kind of like how a lifelong jogging enthusiast is gonna sign up for a marathon. They actually don't like, it's not actually their dream to run another marathon, but if know they have a marathon, they're going to stay really strict and disciplined on their training regimen.
Yeah.
So that's really the only reason for the competition, is to have that mental weight of that. No, there's a fight coming up in X, Y, and Z days. There's a new card in X, Y, and Z months. I need to be ready, and I need to be sharp for that date. So
Yeah.
I need to stay
Having
on the journey and stay honest.
little goals like this are so important. And I think something that Ryan talked about just now, it's something to really, especially certain people, like they need that, like it's like a metric of motivation, right? Oh, okay, I got this fight here. It could be anything. Like um, when I started studying chess, I was like, one day I signed up for a competition, not the next week, but in 3 months. Right, I was like one of the first people to sign up for a competition, because nobody signs up for a competition that far in advance. You know, people are competing like every week, but I was like,
Right, right,
I'm
right.
not ready, but I want to be kind of ready in 3 months, right? So it's kind of like that. I get what you're doing, like,
Oh,
um,
exactly. So
yeah,
that keeps you honest in your training and
yeah,
your work ethic for that period.
yeah, exactly. And what's cool is some people they need that. It's like they get over that crutch and they're like, okay, I can have other goals with whatever. So like for me, I don't have another. Oh, I need to do another competition. It's more like I know my level now, so it's like I can shift my goal with chess, right? And so
Right.
what the reason I'm bringing that up is like there's many ways to motivate yourself to get better at martial arts. You have to find your way. But I do encourage anyone, if you do it safely, do at least one fight. And then maybe you'll want to use fights as the metric, but you do your first fight and you'd be like, "Oh, But now I know where I stand. Maybe you find other metrics to get better at your martial arts journey. Again, we're trying to encourage people to do it their own way. There's ways that work, there's ways that don't work, but everyone finds their way, right? And so we're just giving people ideas.
No, no, 100%. Like that, and
Mm-hmm.
that should be the goal. Is that everyone you need to find your method of motivation to keep you on your journey and to keep moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's super interesting that you sort of decided to do the combat sports a little bit later in your life than like a person on average would get started, right? So you were almost like a big brother, like fighting little brothers in the ring. So tell me about that experience. You see all these young kids, and obviously you're still young, but you've had maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years on some of them, right? So it's like, how does that feel?
Um, Interesting. I mean, no, I mean, I 100% at this point classify as the old man, like age wise,
Mm-hmm.
in combat sports. Like I'm turning 42 in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
So I'm constantly expected to be the fighter that's going to have worse conditioning, slower technique, be moving at a slower velocity, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in my mind, it's good discipline and good technique that I'm able to match speed, that I'm able to overdo a lot of opponents on speed and overdo a lot of opponents on what they perceive as conditioning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that in itself is fun. It's like they're always going to underestimate you a little. They're like, oh, look at this guy. Oh, he got no fast twitch muscles. You're like, let me show you.
Exactly, exactly. No, and in fairness, I mean that's probably what the reason why I'm as active as I am. Most if I were 10, 15 years younger, like with how many fights I average on an annual basis, like there's most fighters, most amateur fighters wouldn't be accepting fights against me because just, oh, he's this guy's got this many fights in how many months, and I have my one fight 6 months ago. Like they wouldn't feel as confident about the matchup. But when they hear, oh no, but he's old enough to be my dad, like then yeah, yeah, I can take him.
I see. That's so interesting. It's like it gets you more fights than if you started out when you were younger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then let's talk about your first fight in the ring. How did that feel? When was that? Like, do you remember the emotions, the preparation, everything?
Um, my first fight was interesting. So my very first fight was I mean, geez, what does count as my first fight? Oh, whew, let me think back here a bit. So my I mean, if we go back to like tournament days where it's just people just randomly show up and go, my first fight was like over like within like 40 seconds. The guy was the tournament wasn't really managed that well. They matched me with a guy that like what I thought like 20 pounds heavier than I was like weighing in that day.
Mm-hmm.
The guy was a sanctioned amateur champion that had already like defended his championship like 2, 3 times.
Wow.
So the fight was like over like in the first round. Uh, so I it's suffice it to say, not a great experience. And like
Mm-hmm.
they kind of set me up where it's like, hey, this guy's got a ton of fights. Like you're old. You have some kind of experience. Um,
Oh.
but then after that, like the next like 2, 3 tournaments I did, it was very one sided and very just very kind of like that. The demeanor and way I would describe those fights is kind of how that second fight that you mentioned on your last breakdown of me,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just very it's always forward pressure, but it's very calm and calculated forward pressure. And that was generally it was really for me, it was really like mental state, it was more flow state than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wasn't actually thinking about the opponent, I wasn't thinking about me, I was just I was doing what was supposed to happen was happening when it was supposed to happen by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just there like kind of maintaining zen through the process. Um and that was generally everyone else's like input in those next few tournaments was, why are you always so calm? Like what where does the calmness come from?
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, that's kind of been that's kind of the aspiring goal, is to find that flow state.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And besides training martial arts, do you meditate and stuff like that?
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I try to meditate. It's become a hard. It's been harder like the last couple of years, like schedule wise. But prior to that, I would get in at least an hour a day. Right now,
wow.
I'm getting in at least half an hour every evening.
Mm-hmm. That's still good. Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you just had a fight, right? So tell me about that experience.
So I just had well, you've got the videos,
Yeah,
so
I do.
hopefully I'm getting a number three breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe what I will do, since I'm going to ask you about the fights here, then I can incorporate some of this into the breakdown too.
There you go. There you go. So the number third fight was against that same kid, Stephen Amori. Um, his background is kind of a mix of American kickboxing, Taekwondo kicks, and Muay Thai.
Well,
Um, so I had certain expectations as far as what his hand movement would be and what limitations he had as far as like his guard and like actual punching mechanics and combinations. Um, I knew I knew what telegraphs to expect as far as his kicking game and all that fun stuff. Um, in that first fight, if you recall, I had a lot of bridging techniques. Like I would kind of like go on the outside and give him a little bit of a long range hook, long range like squatting hook, almost kind of an earth style,
hmm
like hand to like just test his guard and get a reaction to like bridge the distance and like line up combinations. So I pretty much went in expecting that same dynamic to work out.
mm
Um, he apparently thought he apparently thought that he had a better chance if he this time if he closed distance with me and stayed more engaged in mid range with me, which I don't think really worked out that well for him. That's a space that I'm extremely comfortable in and can like kind of play more strategic long games in
hmm
and without resetting in long distance. So yeah, no, I mean it kind of just went textbook comfortable and felt like I was in a happy place the whole time.
That's great. And I guess that's a pretty good follow up question to ask. How do you prepare for fights? Do you like spend hours studying your opponents if there's any footage? Do you just sort of like train your basics? How do you usually prepare?
Um, I mean, as far as prepare like studying the other opponents, there. I mean, amateurs. There's not as much footage as like a pro opponent. So if I'm lucky, I've got maybe 60 seconds, a minute, maybe 2 minutes of footage to work with.
hmm
So usually I'm looking in that scenario, I'm looking for maybe three or four different weaknesses that I can exploit and how I can kind of turn that into some sort of sequence or combination that's going to work out.
Yeah.
And then training pre like about 3 to 4 weeks before a fight. I'll go from my normal maintenance schedule will be about one training session a day, and I'll
hmm
usually do about half like conditioning between cardio and weights, and then half technique work. Um, in those 3 to 4 weeks, and then like 2 or 3 days a week will be sparring time. That's conditioning mode. Once I get to when I'm actually like in like fight camp mode, we'll call it 3 to 4 weeks out before a fight. I'll usually pull 2 a days, 5 to 6 days a week. Where I'll have a morning session and then I'll have an evening session and sparring sessions will go up to about what 4 to 5 times a week. And in those sparring sessions, like I'll be replaying those sequences in my head of what technical deficiencies I'm expecting to repeat and how I'm going to like take advantage of this.
hmm I see. And so your next match is going to be Sanda, right?
My next match is supposed to be a hybrid between Sanda and Muay Thai rules.
Oh, okay. I see. I see.
So I'm not even 100% sure how that's gonna how that works like as far as like rule set.
hmm
We're gonna find out together, I think.
Yeah, I know there's going to be throws. So,
There's gonna be throws. There's supposed to be they're supposed since there's no headgear like in Sanda, there's elbows are supposed to be allowed like Sanda allows for elbows, but only to the body, like
hmm
some amateur Sanda cards. Um, like Muay Thai, it's unlimited clinch time and clinch time as long as it's active. So I'm curious how, because I mean some that's usually you've got your 5 second window
Yeah,
to get your throw off in the
yeah,
clinch. If you don't have them thrown by then,
yeah. It gets broken up. Yeah,
it gets broken up. But if your opponent's throwing knees or you're throwing knees, then the clinch and we're using that Muay Thai rule set of as long as there's activity in the clinch doesn't break. I've essentially got all the time in the world to throw
yeah,
if
yeah.
somebody's throwing a knee every couple of seconds.
In the beginning years of Sanda, that's how it was. They limited the clinch time because grapplers would always win in the early days of Sanda. So that's why there's the
Really?
5 second rule. Yeah. In the very early days, the grapplers would just go in and just throw people on their heads and like cause so many concussions. So they realized to give strikers a chance. So yeah, I'm really curious because now if it's hybridized or sort of almost going back to original Sanda rules, it might encourage certain grapplers to try, right? Of course, the grapplers will still have to
Yeah,
get
that's true.
past the long range and the mid range, but
Well, I mean that's kind of the interesting part. I mean, I'm curious to see how this is going to work out in play. Like, it's not even about me and the opponent. It's more about the hybrid rule set. This is kind of is the thing to think about. Because I mean, I can't imagine a single Sonda guy like that would get into grappling distance and would say this is an excellent time for me to throw a knee. Like, I can't imagine anyone in their right mind like wanting to do that.
yeah,
But
yeah. It's definitely two
that's going to
different
make life interesting.
mentalities, right? Yeah, because there's the people that clinch and then sweep and or try to go into a throw, and there's the people that clinch and try to strike in the clinch. And it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, the people that can kind of be flexible, see the openings in both. Ooh, those people are gonna be so
But
force
yeah,
connected wins.
it's going to make for a really interesting like play on the rule set.
Yeah,
It's an interesting science experiment. I'm looking
yeah.
forward to it.
Is your opponent gonna be a kung fu guy, a Muay Thai guy? Do you know yet? A Taekwondo guy? What's your opponent gonna be?
Uh, all the my opponent, I believe his name is Oliver Maitre. He's strictly Muay Thai.
Oh,
He's strictly for striking. He's strictly Muay Thai. I believe he's got a bit of a jujitsu background, and the camp that he trains with, their focus is MMA.
okay.
So I imagine they're hybridizing ground game into him, but I don't think it's like thorough high ground
Yeah,
game. I'm sure it's jujitsu. Once you're on the ground, like how do you defend and how do you hunt for submissions?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very interesting because obviously if you complete a throw in Sanda, like you get a certain number of points, right? Depending on how good the throw is, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean
So,
it's how many it's I believe it's 2 points as long as you don't get down. So it needs to be a
oh,
clean. It needs to be a clean non MMA style throw.
okay, that makes sense.
Like if you shoot in for a single and he goes down, but you also touched your knee on the ground while you were shooting the single, which super standard MMA, it doesn't mean anything in Sanda.
Oh, that makes sense. I see. I see. Yeah, especially like some of the Shuai right? That the grappling, the wrestling is based in from Sanda. The Shuai people, like they got similar rules, so they have all these cool throws where it's like the guy will not have will have like an arc or something, like his knees not touching the ground even after the throw. It's really cool. Yeah, it's exciting where this is gonna go. And from what Xavier Santana told me, like a lot of these Muay Thai guys don't know what Sanda is, right? So he was sending me some of my breakdowns of the Sanda versus Muay Thai that happened in like the early 2000s. And so I would hope, especially if your opponent has some jujitsu, jujitsu guys besides pulling guards, sometimes they'll learn like one or two throws over the shoulder or something like that. So maybe he has some of that prepared for you.
Maybe I mean maybe I don't really see those going that well though because they're not the idea of them staying up while the other opponent's staying down is not a thing.
Yeah.
Like they're usually fall their purpose in life is to fall on top of the
Yeah.
opponent for
Yeah.
position. So like how
Yeah.
that's and if they're on top of you, if just once they're on top of you, they're also down, so
Yeah.
there's no points awarded.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because the first thing that came to my mind is what if your opponent who does some jujitsu just kept pulling guard on you, but then he'll just lose points that way. You'll gain points if he keeps pulling guard on you, right?
I mean,
So
Yeah, no, I mean, if he keeps I mean, if he keeps pulling guard on me and happens to take me down while pulling guard, then it's just 0 points.
Zero
And
points, yeah. But if he doesn't
I
take you
imagine the
down, right?
crowd's gonna boo at some point. Like just,
Yeah.
we're both falling down over and over again for no reason.
Yeah.
I imagine the crowd's gonna be mad, and
Yeah,
I
the
don't know
crowd
what the
probably
ref
will be.
can do in that position. Just
But
boo, get off the
it
ground.
like in a funny way, right? If he can pull guard on you and get you down with him, it is like a almost like how boxers or even kickboxers they'll sometimes hug, right? It's like a more advanced version of a hug, but you're hugging with the whole body. You're like doing a koala hug. So it's like in a
Basically.
panic, it actually isn't a bad technique. People are gonna hate me now. Like people are gonna start pulling guard to like get safety, right?
Well, just pull guard. Let's both go down and take a rest.
Yeah. Yeah, because if it's unlimited clinch time as long as it's active, you can't just hug, right? So like the only way to really get it reset is to pull guard and get the other guy on the ground with you, and then it gets reset. Oh my god, people are gonna kill me now. I created a stalling strategy for this.
I mean that is something I've got to think about.
Yeah.
I've basically got to I've basically got to maintain position. Like if somebody's trying to pull guard and
Yeah, yeah.
let them
If
give
just
me
out
two
of
points.
reflex, right? You let them pull open guard or something. Don't let them wrap around you. Like just like get him to open guard so that way only his back hits the ground and you're kind of like you're still standing.
Yeah, I've got to play around with stances on how I can like do that more, how I can do that easily without like tiring
Yeah,
out.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. I think there's gonna be a we're gonna discover a lot of new things because a lot of Muay Thai people are not familiar with Sanda. So, but I know Muay Thai people, very adaptive. Muay Thai people are gonna think of something that I'm sure both of us. I mean, you're kind of a Muay Thai guy too, so you're probably gonna think of something on the spot too. Once you get in the ring with your opponent, the flow happens.
100%, 100%. I mean, I'm hoping just that like I'm hoping my opponent's going to default into clinch and knee game and like, oh, we're in throwing distance and you only want to have one leg on the ground. Yes, please, thank you. I'll take the free throws, no problem.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm so I'm so excited about this because I'm not the only one who says this, but if you train in Sanda rules, it should be a very applicable to God forbid if you get into a street encounter. Because okay, you throw the guy, okay, you don't go down with him, you run, right? Like Sanda seems to give you
Yeah.
that ability.
Well, that's the only other interesting thing which I've bugged Xavier about. I don't think it's going to change on this card. But the idea, like Sando is normally a platform scenario. Like
Yeah.
there's not too many Sando tournaments that actually like competitions that actually happen with ring ropes.
Hmm.
So like I don't. Well, that's the other detail is there are no ring outs, or maybe there are ring outs if you throw them over the ropes. But I
Yeah.
feel like that would be like slightly illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a match I saw. It was one of those old either late '90s or early 2000s Muay Thai versus Sanda matches. The guy threw him out of the ropes on his face. The Sanda guy threw the Muay Thai guy out of the ropes on his face,
That
and I was like,
that's Sando rules. That's legal.
yeah, yeah, yeah. In general, it's like the amount of like potentially thrown on your head inside. It's like,
Yeah, no, 100%.
yeah, yeah. Which that's not allowed in MMA. You can't spike a guy in MMA, but like inside you can spike a guy on his head.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, exactly. So for anyone wondering what parts of MMA that Sanda has, that's one example. Like you can spike a guy on his head. Also, like most MMA people, because they have the small gloves, they don't know how to throw people with like kickboxing gloves, right? Which Sanda people know how to do.
Yeah, no, it's completely different. It's
Yeah,
completely different throw mechanics
yeah, yeah,
than what they're used to.
exactly, exactly. So, what is your you do this competition in April. What is next for you? Also, do you teach?
Kind of yes, kind of no.
Hmm.
I don't actually like run a school or kind of wear the coach hat in any form. I've kind of got like the in the local community, I've kind of got the big brother reputation.
Hmm.
Like people, I'll get other fighters that admire a certain part of my style or something like that, and they'll kind of want to sit down with me and work with me for a few months on how they can incorporate a very specific detail, and I'll be there to help them out. But um I guess kind of a faux pas from like my foundation is like my original mentor didn't charge me $1.
Hmm.
It doesn't feel like it was very much about just passing on lineage than anything else for him. So it feels weird that I would, you know, try and turn it into a business model or some sort of like
Hmm.
actual like official pastime.
That makes sense. Is your original mentor still alive?
I don't believe so. I sincerely doubt it.
Hmm.
Um, when I trained with him, we're talking what? Do the math here. 26 years ago.
Hmm.
He was in his late 70s at the time.
Oh wow.
So like when I stopped training with him, there was some like family stuff going on where I had to like I had to leave that area and go move to a different part of the city.
Hmm.
So there was a few years where I couldn't get to go see him and kind of lost contact. And when I got back, like everybody's like, "Oh no, he's gone." So I
Oh
I I, ass- I assume he was no longer with us when they told me that, and they didn't really have more information for me. But
yeah.
I mean, if he somehow made it to today, like he would, yeah, no, he's definitely not with us anymore.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, the other thing that is such a cool story about this is that he didn't really speak English, right? So you and him
No,
were training. It was based on movement and kinesthetic learning.
movement on things feeling right. Um, his Spanish wasn't the best Spanish, but we did both speak Spanish.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, because he lived in Cuba.
yeah. So there we did have a lot of we did have a good common chunk of vocabulary between my Spanish and his Spanish.
Hmm.
But a lot of it was push and feel, and your weight should be here, and let me demonstrate it, and let me push on you here, and it should feel like this, and a lot of feel and what should feel right kind of stuff
Hmm.
was a lot of
Hmm.
the methodology.
I see. Yeah, I just love stories like that. It's like, oh my god, he's just a dude. Like you know how when the kung fu community when unfortunately some big master gets destroyed again, there's always the oh my god, but there are these secret masters. It's like it felt like you actually met one. You know, you actually met like a secret master. You're the closest there is to like a hidden master in the mountain. You actually met one.
Which I mean, for the Gen Y world and after like kind of like after our generation, I mean, is I feel like there was a big there was a big shift like culturally,
Yeah.
like as far as the kung fu community. Like there was a time when it was mostly family lineages and it wasn't about there it's every once in a while that I've got to break it down to someone that's like, oh no, but if you don't have a specific color belt or sash, then you don't know kung fu. Like how old is your master? Who did
Yeah.
he teach under? Is he actually Chinese? Because and does his grandfather know that he's handing out belts? Because I'm sure his grandfather's pissed that he's doing a Japanese tradition
Yeah.
about assigning belt colors.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure he's not happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting how that's changed. But I mean yeah, prior to like 80s, before the 80s, that was pretty much Kung Fu world. It wasn't a school, like most of it
Yeah.
wasn't a school.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
family traditions and passed down in family houses.
The whole concept of belts, or like if they try to make it they try to pretend it was more Chinese, they would say sashes, right? The whole
Yeah.
concept of belts or sashes was like not a thing. Like even when I was doing kung fu as a kid, everyone's like, "What's your belt?" I'm like, "What? What's my what?" You know? And like as I got older, then it's like, oh, the school started having belts or sashes, but usually they were just they were trying to fit into the modern cultural zeitgeist. But it's refreshing to
I
hear
mean, they
you
were, yeah.
yeah, to hear you
They
say
were-
like even in Florida, like the kung fu schools, they weren't always about belts and stuff like that. That's great to know.
I mean, not sure. I mean, wherever there's anybody studying and practicing kung fu prior to like the 80s, like it was just mentor mentee like in a family house type of environment.
Yeah.
But yeah, like as far as I know, like the sash and belt thing was like started in the 90s, and it was most as far as my area, and it was mainly just we've got to copy the karate and taekwondo people because we've got to give the customers a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
They need
Yeah.
levels like to graduate to, which again, I mean, it feels like I'm like dumping on a portion of our community, but that's not in my mind. That's not really the spirit of kung fu. Like there shouldn't be a beginning and ending periods. You should like oh, you're now at this level. Like you finished with no. You're it's cyclical. It's always spiraling. You're going to continue to evolve and work on the same stuff 1,000 times over. And maybe 100 years from now, when you're old and decrepit, you might not want to do it anymore. But you're probably still going to be things are probably still going to be occurring in your mental space on how to evolve and how to make things refined.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is I like the direction this talk's going because even for example, my martial arts journey, right? Obviously, fight commentary breakdowns encourage me to keep training, but sometimes I'm telling you, sometimes I know if I didn't have the channel, I probably would train differently and maybe even train better. It's just unfortunate that like the channel made it about the views and the subscribers, you know, and obviously I care more about the martial arts journey than just that, but you know, there is this metric now, right? And there is this
Right.
metric that my martial arts journey back in the day, if I there were no YouTube, wouldn't have cared about. And it's like it's taken away from certain things. It's just like I as you were talking about the belt thing, I'm like, even these new metrics, obviously I don't care about belts, but I care about other metrics that are equally commercial, you know?
No, of course
So
you're a YouTube guy.
yeah,
You've got
yeah,
to care about some metrics.
yeah. And it's like it's unfortunate because when the metrics aren't going my way sometimes, it it gets associated with my martial arts journey, unfortunately. Right? So it's like, yeah, it's there's something to be said about that pure martial arts journey. It's like training for the sake of training the martial arts, you know, not about making money, not about whatever people do with their martial arts, just refining your martial arts, right? And this is definitely one of those years. In general, like the concept of filmmaking, creating content for me is also like, oh yeah, I sort of lost a little bit of that love too because so much of what I do has not just been public facing, but also commercialized, right? So it's like, yeah, it's a funny thing. Like, yeah, I just it's like a funny analogy or a funny way of relating that I never would have related. Like, it's like I'm sort of living like that martial arts school that has a belt, but like a different way, you know?
Well, I mean, if you'll indulge me and let me get old Manny on you for a second,
Mhm.
you do understand that YouTubing and filmmaking is also kung fu.
Yeah, yeah,
Everything is kung fu,
yeah,
Jerry.
yeah,
You're there's always a way to get better. There's always a way to evolve. There's always a way to refine, and it's that spirit that's really the zeitgeist and the essence that we learn in the martial art, and then we apply to everything.
yes, yes, yeah. It's a very important thing to keep in mind. Like you said, you're applying kungfu, right? You're applying kungfu everywhere. Any place you put hard work, as long as you keep refining and keep sticking to it.
As long as you grow and evolve,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stay true to that, and stay true to that growth.
yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. So, I guess that's another way of thinking about it. It's like, okay, whatever. If you're refining and getting better at whatever new metrics are in the world, that's still kung fu. Yeah, it's important, man. Sometimes it's important to have that reminder because sometimes you're in the day to day and just like ah.
I mean that I mean which that's I mean that's kind of I mean that's one of the reasons like I've stuck with training for so long as I have, and why it's like become like a foundational pillar of life. And even not having to do with a combat sport is, I mean, anything else, like in your real world life, your 9 to 5, like you get burnt out, things get monotonous, things get tiring. Sometimes you feel like you lost your way. You're not quite sure what your direction's supposed to be. Like you don't know if your heart's still in the thing. But then if you just like bring yourself back to that pillar of, am I better than I was yesterday? How could I now standing where I am today, how could I have grown and polished and evolved slightly from what I was doing yesterday? What can I do tomorrow a little bit better? And just those repetitive steps of improvement on a daily basis, and will kind of bring you back to a place where you're passionate about whatever the thing is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Man, um, do you have any other systems that you want to train, martial arts wise?
At some point, I do want to put a little bit more time into what are considered like the other pillars of like the Taoist system. I do want to like put more a little bit more energy into like kind of rounding out my Baji Quan and my
Mhm.
Taji Quan. Like I want to get the trifecta,
Yeah.
like and understand how they're all related. Because I mean, they most people don't really understand that those styles were like within a very small radius of each other, and they actually evolved together
Yeah. Yeah.
as a three style system.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
So
that's pretty cool. So you're it's like you're looking for all the ways that it can connect.
yeah, well, because I mean, most people don't realize like that the like that province right outside of Wuhan, like that's where those three styles all originated. Like the original founding original founders within a couple of generations, they all like knew each other and they all evolved together.
Yeah.
Like most people don't realize that was a thing.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, that's cool. Would you ever get into like a MMA match?
Oh God, no.
Okay, so for you, it's like okay, I'm sticking away from like being having to like potentially get hit people on the ground or getting hit on the ground.
And I mean, so my mental state on as far as like combat sports, I like the general family of kickboxing rule sets.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything that follows into like that standing and striking world, I'm kind of in my happy place there. Um, I'm not financially really doing it for the money. I mean, I'm turning 42 in next month.
Wow.
Like I don't like I'm already doing okay in other areas of my life
Yeah,
for finances.
yeah,
There's there's no way that fighting's ever going to catch up like financially and pay me well
yeah,
to be a fighter, right? So in that scenario, I'm just competing for free for the mental boost of motivation,
yeah,
like to continue my journey. Any rule set that legally allows another guy to pelvic thrust me in the face just doesn't sound like fun.
yeah, yeah.
So if I'm not gonna have fun, then why am I gonna do it?
Yep, yep. And that's an important thing for people to understand about their martial arts journey. Like you make it your own journey. So I'm the same. Like obviously, I do think jujitsu is a great art, but I'm the same. Like I don't really have fun training jujitsu, so like I don't do it too much, and I won't ever claim like if people want to train jujitsu, do it right. But like yeah, I'm exactly the same. It's like I don't always like that feeling, and yeah, I like training the stuff that makes you kick, you know, and I like training the stuff that allows you to jump and stuff like that. So yeah, I know what you mean.
No, 100%. Which I mean, that's the only. I mean, that's probably a whole other like hour of conversation right there.
Hmm.
The only complaints I'll get from jujitsu guys is the whole like they'll kind of go down the dark side into self defense world,
Yeah.
but in a real fight on the streets,
Yeah.
which it's like in a no like like we're not doing the self defense debate because then we're talking about legal
Yeah.
requirements and
Legal requirements. I love what you said.
self defense is a set of legal requirements for to avoid legal liability.
Yeah.
There's no position where you're strangling somebody unconscious and there's not going to be legal liability.
Yeah.
Like you're in trouble no matter what.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. I had a jiu-jitsu guy last week. And he was like he heard that I'm not really into jiu-jitsu. He's like, yeah, well, what if that fight hits the ground? He just immediately went there. I was like, you know, there are times, right? You know, there are times where maybe someone really sucker punches you and it might get to the ground. But the unfortunate thing is most of the fights that end up on the ground, it was like an ego thing. Both of them like got into a fight when they shouldn't have, and they kept fighting when they shouldn't have. Right? So like yeah, like you can't use the 0.1% of the time when it does hit the ground if you're like living a regular, you know, normal citizen life to justify, okay, yeah, like that's why you have to trade this, and that's why like your martial arts journey is wrong if you don't trade this, right?
which I mean, no, I mean, I don't even I don't know what words or bad words to use for the YouTube algorithm. It's more of a power fantasy game when we get into like the self defense guys. Well, you've got to have a knife technique and you've got to have a grappling technique and you need your concealed weapons permit and you've got to use your jujitsu to be able to draw your gun. Like, dude, how much money was in your wallet? $20? How much was your wallet worth? 50, $60? just give the guy your wallet and say you're sorry. It's $80. Like
Yeah.
that was cheaper than that was cheaper and less trouble than all the stuff. And you didn't have to shoot anybody. Like I know I get that it sounds cool, like especially if you like saw a lot of movies in the action movies in the 90s, but you're gonna have nightmares and PTSD for the rest of your life because you shot that one guy that really needed $20 more than you
Yeah.
in a random
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yeah, it's the funniest thing. Like, you and I growing up being kids who, often played unsupervised, like I still remember times when like I hit someone too hard, in a fight, or like one time a kid pissed me off, I shot him point blank with an airsoft gun. By the way, guys, I'm not saying do that, okay? Like I'm just saying, like, I
Don't do
still
that.
remember that and I still live with
Yeah.
that. Like I hurt the kid. I
Yeah,
hurt
no,
the kid.
that's a weight that you have to carry
Yeah,
forever on some
I'm
level.
saying it not to brag, okay? I think about it. I'm like, wow, that was really. He probably like remembers me as the, like it's just like
Yeah.
I remember he started crying immediately, and I was like you live with that. Now imagine like you get into an actual fight. Okay, he takes you to the ground, you stab him, okay, but it was self defense. You just stabbed someone. You know how much that will mess you up.
Yeah, if he doesn't survive, and if you don't go to jail forever for assault with a lethal weapon, you still killed the guy.
Yeah, yeah,
Like and it's not like you shot somebody that was really far off in the distance. You like, no, he was on top of you. Like you got to like stare at his face and like watch his expression change
yeah,
and watch the light go out of his eyes. Like that's gonna keep you up at night forever. You're
yeah.
never gonna get over that.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I don't think I ever told that story. I just told that story. Look at my mood now. Like, I'm horrified I did that. Like, you see how it affected me? I'm horrified. Like, I feel bad. Like, I'm afraid Ryan's going to judge me. Now, I hope you don't. But, like, I was little. We all did stupid stuff back in the day. But, like,
Of
this is
course.
what I'm talking about. Like, and that was just, like, a plastic. It still hurt him a lot, okay? Probably bled, too. But, like, look, like, that was just kids being stupid, Imagine that's what people don't understand about these. Like, there's a reason why the self-help, the therapy industry, psychology is such a big thing. Because as you get older, your chances of living with trauma is going to be more and more, and everyone needs to, like, deal with their trauma correctly, right? So, like, don't add in more things that you have to pay lots of money to, like, get over.
100%, I agree.
Life is hard enough, like, especially, I mean, you're in Florida, you guys don't have state taxes, it's probably a little better, but in California, man, every day I get pissed off at California.
But yeah, no, that's kind of that's my ongoing like gripe with jujitsu guys. No, don't. Which I mean, I don't know if it's I don't want to say it's just kungfu, but like most style systems that I've seen that are like competitive in nature, where there's a good amount of like sparring and stress testing of your style, and where you learn to kind of deal with the combat level of stress. Those guys don't get in fights in
Yeah,
the real world.
yeah,
Like the power fantasy's gone
yeah,
because in a controlled legal environment, they've gotten hurt and other people have gotten hurt. They understand
yes,
what getting hurt for real is like.
yeah,
They don't want to hurt a random person for no, like if it's not necessary.
yeah,
And B, the person, if there's another person instigating some sort of physical confrontation, if they can see the difference in your demeanor if you're an actual if you're actually a stress tested martial artist and you like maintain calm. Like there's something psychologically that doesn't fit the model. They're
yeah,
like, oh, this one's different. Maybe this isn't a good idea. And then the fact that you're also like, hey, you know what? You don't really have to do this. Do you need a beer? Like what do we need to just like forget this happened? It's not this isn't a thing we have to do.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
everybody goes on and lives their life.
yeah. Um, the jiu-jitsu guy, the second question he asked me is, okay, so there's a fight, what do you do? And immediately I'm like, I'll just run. And he like, I give him credit. He was about to like start arguing, but then he thought about it. He's like, oh yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I was like, you're turning around. He was expecting to be like, oh, I'm a striker. Oh, I'm gonna throw a hook. No, I just told him I'm just gonna run. And he's like, oh, yeah, that sounds pretty good. He almost argues like, yeah, it's like, you know, yeah. And I like what Ryan said. Like a lot of times, a lot of people in this world, if they're having a bad day or something, sometimes just listen to them. It's the weirdest thing. Like sometimes, hey, you want a beer? Like that's all they need sometimes.
Yeah, it's amazing how far are you okay will
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like to like
exactly.
avoid an issue.
Yeah.
But that's like the same like your jujitsu guy debate. That was I had a similar one, like one of my very first jujitsu guy debates. He's like, oh no, but what if the guy's trying to close it's a fight, the guy's trying to fight you and he's closing this, he's trying to grab you.
Hmm.
I'm gonna keep my distance and not let him grab me. Oh, but then what if he's not chasing after you? And what if you're keeping your distance and he's not coming after you? So then we're not fighting. I'm just gonna walk away.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a whole paradigm that people just forget. Like, um, and it's not just jujitsu people. It's just a lot of people who have never experienced what you called like the violence in the controlled setting, right? They don't understand that you got to look beyond just the paradigm, and this is also talking about the fake martial arts people who are just like, yeah, all you have to do is bite, right? Of course, there's that extreme too. There's like the two extremes, right? But like at the end of the day, it is your own martial arts journey, but you should try to train it realistically also, but also like realize beyond a doubt that there's more to life than this. And I think it's like what Ryan said earlier. Your kung fu journey is not just martial arts. And I had to learn it in 2023 because I was having some mental, you know, difficulties. And then I took up chess. I spent my time developing other skills. Right now, I talk about taxes. I'm taking a tax class. You're putting your kung fu elsewhere. And then you realize, oh yeah, this will prevent me from like putting too much emphasis and too much self-worth on one thing. Obviously Ryan and I, a lot of people watch our stuff. We put a lot of thought, we put a lot of training into martial arts, but that's not the be all end all. There's other things. Ryan's got a
Cool.
family.
But
I got other things going on too.
there you go. I mean, the at the end of the day, the martial arts is simply a framework to like for rules to live by and and rules to live your life and how to
Yeah.
grow as a person. But once you have that rule set down, that applies to everything.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how you live life on every level, on every metric, and it's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, I had one. Oh yeah, here's my question. You have a family. Does your family train in martial arts?
Oh, of course.
Uh huh.
I've got an 18-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter.
Wow.
9-year-old daughter, I haven't got she doesn't have the bug yet. But my son's actually done 3 different kickboxing tournaments.
Wow.
And he still trains with me. He still trains with me weekly. He usually
Uh
gets
huh.
in about 2 days of training every week.
Wow.
So he's actually in the process right now of wrapping up qualifications for the Air Force, and his personal plan is to get on the Team Air Force for boxing.
Wow. Okay.
So he's got his own personal journey to follow.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Wow. Um. Yeah, I think that's it with my questions. Do you have any topics you want to talk about, or anything you want to
Uh,
add?
Nothing specific I can think of. I think we did a good job covering
Yeah.
most of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I like how this conversation flowed into territory that I didn't even expect it to flow, which is great. I mean, because again, I have to emphasize what Ryan said. The kung fu word is not just about martial arts, right? Whether it was Bruce Lee, I say Bruce Lee made it about martial arts, but I might even be wrong about that. But whoever made it only about martial arts, you got to realize this word's been around since like the beginning of time. It's not just about martial arts. It's
Yeah,
just about your approach to life.
I think you're right. It was Bruce Lee when they originally switched it from Gung to Kung for like the North America like market. Oh, let's get a market better here.
Yeah, yeah,
And
Chinese
then it was
kung
strictly
fu,
about
right?
martial
That's what he
arts.
said, Chinese kung fu, and it was like that got
Yeah,
associated with. I think it was Bruce Lee. It got associated
it was
only
Bruce
with
Lee,
martial arts.
100%.
Yeah,
Like I
so
think it
he was
was
a
his
good
first or
branding
second book.
person,
Yeah.
but he unfortunately misbranded a very ancient Chinese term.
No, no, 100%.
Yeah,
But hey, we're still spreading the ideology today in the right
yeah,
way. So
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, if everything works as planned, I'll see you in April. Then I have to work out certain things.
right.
It's been a little overwhelming for me recently. So, but I'll do my best to make it in April. So we'll hopefully do a talk in person or something. I'll see you in April. I mean, I'm really excited to
Definitely,
meet you in
definitely, man.
person.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and Fight Day is actually my birthday.
Oh wow.
So
Wow.
I'm turning 42 on the day of that fight.
Wow. Wow. I wonder like maybe after your fight or something, we should do a little celebration or something like that.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course, man.
That'd be kind of cool.
Definitely.
Awesome. So everyone watching, Ryan Pinagel, and it's funny, Ryan. If we search your name, there's a channel that's uploaded some of your stuff. So yeah, you
Really?
are actually not completely not like off social media anymore. So yeah, so if you search Ryan Pinagel, of course you can find my coverage, and he's fought for Fighters Rep. Shout out George and Fighters Rep. So you can see him on Fighters Rep, but there's another channel that uploaded some stuff from Ryan. So his footage is
That's right.
slowly
That's right.
getting out there.
I'm starting to leak out there into the internet.
Exactly. Cool. So guys, if I don't interview Ryan before April, we'll see him in April. And Ryan, if you ever want to come on, do more talks and stuff like that, feel free. Reach out to me whenever.
Yeah, definitely, bud.
Okay. Everyone watching, I will stop the live stream now. So everyone watching this fight